Hi everyone, my name is Vaibhav and today I'm going to give a presentation about microservices. So in this presentation, I'm going to talk about the problem, the importance to stakeholders, the solution, principle of microservices, terms, rationale, the cost benefit analysis, challenges, and in the end we'll talk about the assumptions and conclusion. So let's talk about the problem. So the problem starts with the root, which is the legacy softwares. The legacy softwares are softwares which have a very large code base. These are the applications which are like monolith applications which have all of its components fitted inside one big application. So like companies following this monolithic architecture can be seen like they update their system during the night when most of the people are not using the softwares. So due to this, like if people are using their softwares, it would be difficult for them, right? So let's see. So availability is one of the major issue with these legacy softwares. So like the we have already talked about that legacy softwares, like it is very difficult to update. So the low availability of the system is these legacy softwares are hard to sell. They can be dangerous in safety critical softwares. Apart from that, these are not reliable. When talking about the flexibility, low flexibility prevents developers from using the technology of choice. Also, this can lead to increased development times and cost if technology is not efficient. Also, these legacy softwares are very difficult to test and it is hard to scale. So let's see the context. So we can see like if a banking system is following a legacy software architecture, and if even they have to push a even small update, they need to take the whole system down and then they need to push the update. So it would be a very difficult process for them. So the root causes are like the legacy systems are not modular and it is difficult to scale. Also, the software is an emerging field and research is kind of new. So what are the questions? What are the questions in our mind when we see these legacy softwares? Like how can they be improved? So the questions are like, can we design software systems that could be more available and more flexible? Or how can we develop software such that we do not need to take down an entire system? Or how do we even design a software that is more available and more flexible? So let's see. The importance to stakeholders. So the business owner, if the software is not available and is not testable and is not flexible, then it could lead to an increased business cost and even in loss of business. Also, the client will use competitors product if it is released first. In terms of developers perspective, like if the system is not flexible, it could lead to inefficient use of technologies and cause unnecessary headaches. Also, if it is not testable, then the developer would take extra time and effort to try and fix the issue. In terms of user, like customers are always interested in like a product that is highly reliable and could be used 24/7. And systems like banking, they need to be available 24/7, and if they are using these legacy softwares, then it would be really a problem that it could not be available 24/7. So the solution, so all of this could be like, the solution to all of this is microservices. So what are microservices? So I'll break it down for you. Microservices are service oriented architecture. So like these are services which communicate with each other over the network, and these are also loosely coupled elements. So like you can update the services independently, or even updating one service doesn't even require changing the other services. Also, these microservices have bounded context, which means like they are self-contained. You can update the code without knowing anything about the internals of the microservices. So let's see how does it solve our problem. So microservices actually allow the system to be more modular. Apart from that, it reduces coupling and increases cohesion. This would in turn lead to like higher availability in case the system needs to be taken down for a fix. This would lead also to high flexibility as components are not dependent to each other. And apart from that, this would lead to high testability as modules are separated and problems will be easier to isolate. So let's see, what are the principles of microservices? The principles are just like very simple. The modularity, application is made up of like smaller services. Also they hide the implementation details, so like only their public API interface will be visible from outside for communication. Automation, they microservice implements like continuous integration and continuous deployment policy. These are autonomous, like each service has its own API and database. Also they are highly observable, they can be maintained easily. So let's see, here I'm going to explain like the Netflix microservice architecture. So take a look at this architecture. So this is the Netflix microservice architecture. They have different types of services which include like account service, catalog service, recommendation service, and customer service. So like it can be clearly seen that none of them have a common database. So like catalog service, it needs to maintain a list of catalogs, so it has its separate database. Also the customer service, it has its own separate database, and they all are connected to a API gateway. Well, I'll show in the next couple of slides what is this. And then there is a load balancer which is needed to balance the load, and the top layer is the front end which we see in the Netflix. So what are the terms? Like the monolithic architecture, these are like traditional software architecture as we have already seen before. The components are intertwined into one large system. Also there is high coupling and low cohesion. Microservices on the other end is a new technology trend, components separated by business, and there is low coupling and high cohesion. So here there is a difference between monolithic architecture and microservices. It can be seen on the left hand side that monolithic is one large application with everything inside it and with only one database. On the other hand, microservices, there are different APIs and different services which is connected through a one common API gateway, and then it is implemented like this. So what is the rationale behind this? So architecture, as I've already explained, monolithic is one large executable, while microservices is a suite of small services. Scaling, the entire application is scaled when one part is the bottleneck. On the other hand, microservices, each service is scaled independently when needed. Implementation, this is one of the most important steps. Like typically, the entire application in monolith is developed in one language, but in microservice, each service can be developed in a different programming language. The cost benefit analysis, so the cost for business owner would definitely increase there as he has to like get more latest technology resources if he needs to implement microservices. Also for developer, this would be an extra time and skills required as implementation requires skilled developers. For user, it would be an increased price due to high development cost. But what are the benefits? Business owner, if this software is successful, then he would get more funding for and probably better resources and acclaim. A developer will have better chances for in technology for each module, which will in turn increase the flexibility because they can focus on one module at a time. Also, the user sees increased productivity and reliability. So what are the challenges behind using microservices? The system needs to be consistent. Also, one of the major thing is microservice needs an ecosystem, which means it needs a load balancer, API gateway, and service discovery, which is their public API interface, as I have shown before. Also, it needs integration test, and on the top of that, this is a very complex architecture. So what are the assumptions behind all of this? So the microservice system, like the system where microservice architecture is being implemented, has the environment and dependencies which is required by microservices to run independently. Also, the system already has a load balancer which would be required to scale the system depending on the situation. All the microservices have a public API through which they interface is visible to the outside world, so anyone could interact with them when required through this public API interface. So in the end, I would like to conclude like the microservice architecture is a distributed approach designed to overcome the limitations of traditional monolithic architectures. Also, microservices help to scale applications and organizations while improving the cycle times. And microservice comes with a challenge that might cause additional architecture complexity and overall burden. But microservice can help in increasing productivity of the system and also gives us freedom to choose the implementation technology and knowledge. So these are the references which I used uh, during this presentation, and thank you. Thanks.